So we have a special treat for the viewers today. We have one of Houston's top attorneys. She specializes in divorce and family law. You know what I'm saying? Just want to make sure we gave you a proper introduction here. She's been named to the top 40 under 40 by National Trial Lawyers Association. She's on the board of directors for Houston Association of Women Attorneys. She's the founder and CEO of Women of Law, a nonprofit that focuses on connecting, inspiring, empowering, promoting the advancement of women in the field. She earned her bachelor's from Prairie View, attended Queen Mary University of London, earned her doctorate from Thurgood Marshall School of Law. She's been featured on BET, Yahoo, Glamour Magazine, The Today Show, Times Magazine, Fox News, CNN, and many more. She wrote a children's book titled I'm a Lawyer that's currently available for purchase at Barnes & Noble, Target, Amazon, and many other places. It's rated 5 out of 6 stars. Go get the book. You won't be disappointed. And on top of that, she manages her own law firm, the DeRouen Law Firm. Before we get into your story, I just wanted to say this interview was very important for me to do. You grew up maybe 2-3 blocks away from me. I literally got to watch your come up. So I can vouch. You were given nothing. You earned every single accolade. You're someone who inspired me. And I just want to give you your flowers and personally tell you congrats.
Thank you. That was one of the best introductions I've ever had. I feel like somebody.
You are somebody, boss lady. But after saying all that, let's get into it. For the people that don't know you, give them your name and tell them where you're from.
My name is Brenda DeRouen. I'm from Cameron, Texas. Like you just mentioned, I am a family and divorce attorney here in the Houston area. I am a single mother. I have a 16-year-old son, and I have a fur baby named Polo. So that's me.
Okay, so your last name DeRouen, is that French? Is that like a
It is French.
I always wonder. So what was it like for you growing up in Cameron, Texas?
I had a really good childhood. I enjoyed growing up in Cameron, Texas. It was not a lot to do, a lot to kind of get into, a lot of trouble that you could get into. But it was fun growing up in Cameron. I didn't see a lot of successful people growing up in Cameron. So that was one of the things that kind of inspired me, was just not seeing a lot of us in the community that were lawyers, doctors, engineers. But overall, I had a great childhood in Cameron.
Did we have a stem cell program at all?
Well, if we did, we wasn't in
it. Right. All right. So what's one fond memory you have of growing up in a small town?
I just remember being able to go anywhere and be safe, just walking out of your house and just knowing that you're okay, that you're good. I don't know if that's changed or not, but I feel like we grew up in a very safe neighborhood. There's things that happens, but for the most part, it's a close-knit community. Football games, that was always a big thing, going to football games and seeing the different boys from different towns. So that's something that I remember about growing up in Cameron.
Yeah, it's like a village. Everybody know everybody.
But everybody know everybody.
People don't know this about you, but you were a really good basketball player. Did you ever have any dreams of making it to the WNBA?
Oh yeah, I was a really good basketball player. Just a little shout out. I think I scored 48 points in a basketball game, playing basketball at in Cameron. I actually did have a lot of recruits come in my senior year to see me play basketball. The last game that I actually played, I believe Baylor was there scouting me. So yes, I did have dreams to go to play D1 basketball. I had dreams to go to the WNBA, but unfortunately that was just not my story.
Did you have a certain teacher from Cameron who just, believed in you, inspired you to be great? Who was that?
Coach Steinbecker. She was my English teacher, and she was also a coach. She eventually became a coach, but she always believed in me. And also Coach Stork. I know there were a lot of times that me and my mom had some beef, and I would call Coach Steinbecker. Coach Steinbecker would call Coach Stork, and I would go to his house with his family, his wife, and his kids, and they would just take care of me. But Coach Steinbecker always spoke life into me. She always told me she's seen great things, great potential. Like, she always spoke life into me. That's my girl.
Shout out to her, man, because you never hear anything bad about her. So to let you know, she must have been a really good person. Okay, so moving along a little bit, I see here you got pregnant at 17. How stressful of a time was that for you?
What? It was very stressful. I mean, can you imagine? I think that may have been one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Not saying that it was a negative thing, but being a teenage mom is not something that's glorified, right? And so when I got pregnant with my son, it was a lot of embarrassment, it was a lot of shame, and it was a lot of resentment, to be honest with you. My family did not take it well. Like I said, I lost all opportunities to even basketball because everything was kind of pulled from me, and I didn't even get to have a baby shower. No one wanted to celebrate me being a teenage mom, so that still kind of bothers me to this day. But yeah, it was tough. It was stressful, not thinking that I could go to college, not knowing what it meant to be a mother. You have to remember, I also took my son, I had him July the 6th, and I was in Prairie View at college mid-August. So it was a very fast transition for me to be a mother, to be leaving home and to be going to college. So it was very stressful.
And do you think that times have changed now, kind of, because it's almost glorified, like the what is that, teen pregnancy? What's that show on MTV?
Teen moms, teen
Yeah,
moms.
yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's almost glorified these days. How you feel about that?
I don't think being a teenage mom is anything that should be taken lightly. I don't believe that any teenager is ready for the responsibility of motherhood, but I also want to be careful with my words. Our teen people who are having children and need to be encouraged that it's going to be okay. If I could do it again, I would not have a child at a young age. I would not want my son to have a child at a young age. That's a huge responsibility that I can even say I myself was not ready for, and could be impactful on your child later on in life, simply because you're just not ready.
Wow. And I see here only 50% of women who get pregnant as teens go on to graduate high school, and less than 2% of those women go on to graduate from college. So you happen to be a very small percentage.
And only 2% of attorneys in the United States are Black women attorneys. So yeah, I'm a unicorn.
Wow. A pioneer in more ways than one. So quick side note, you were the first person that I actually know who went viral. You did
Oh
a
yeah,
photo shoot with Dion Ivory. It got millions of
yes.
views. Was that a moment of empowerment for you? And can you tell us that story?
It was a moment of empowerment. So, just kind of like you mentioned earlier, I was a teenager. And so becoming a mother, it changes you mentally, physically, and spiritually. And for me, one of the things that I had trouble with overcoming was the physical impact that came from having a child. So, if you remember, like, I was very skinny, I had a six pack, I was athletic. And so having my son, I got stretch marks on my stomach. And so I was very I didn't I was sensitive about showing my body to other people, especially men. I did not truly embrace everything that came with having a child. And so my friend Dion, we decided to do a photo shoot just to recognize that, listen, this is what comes with motherhood. I was starting a blog that was entitled Oh Brenda, where I was just expressing my thoughts about motherhood, about life, about everything that was going on in the world. That was one of those moments where I'm like, you know what? If I cannot inspire other people, if I do not have self-respect and positivity for myself, if I'm not embracing all of who I am, how can I tell other people to do that? So yeah, it was crazy. We did not expect that to go viral, but it did. So many celebrities reposted it and could relate to it. So it was a impactful
I
moment
remember
in my life.
Plies wrote you like 2 paragraphs. And, wow, you let you know
Yes,
this you have. So okay, let's get back on track.
yeah,
You graduate high school, you choose to attend Prairie View. What made you decide to go to PV?
right. So my idea was, I didn't know really, you're not really taught about, career paths. Well, at least I wasn't taught career paths. I knew I wanted to get in law, but I didn't know what like what I needed to exactly do to do it. So the only thing in my mind was like, okay, criminal justice. Criminal justice is law. Because for me, that was my, like, that's how I knew about the laws. It's like you break a crime, you go to jail, then you got to get a lawyer. That was the only thing I knew about a lawyer. So to be honest, I said, okay, I'm gonna do criminal justice. I thought for a moment I wanted to be a DEA agent, like drug enforcement agent. I don't know why, but so I started looking for different schools that I could go to. But remember, I was supposed to go to school to play basketball. So I had all these opportunities that were just kind of taken away from me. And I never forget going to the counselor at that time and telling her, hey, I'm pregnant and I know that I have the grades for college, but I really just don't know what I'm supposed to do, because when you have a recruit, they're helping you do all that stuff for you. So I no longer had a recruit. I no longer had anybody who could help me through the process. And I remember that counselor telling me, you don't need to worry about going to college. You need to worry about how you're going to raise your child. And that was kind of like a fire under my ass, to be honest with you. It didn't discourage me. It actually inspired me to show this woman that you got the wrong person. And so I started looking into different colleges. My father actually stays in Houston. And so I was looking for a school that was closer to the Houston area. I visited TSU's campus and I did not get out of the car. It was the middle of Third Ward. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good on that. And so Prairie View offered me a scholarship. We went and visited their campus. They have a beautiful campus. It reminds me of home. And so I decided that that was just going to be the best route for me, was to go to Prairie View, and I do not regret it.
Okay, who helped you navigate taking your SAT, ACT, filling out your FAFSA, financial aid?
So shout out to my mom, right? My mom, me and her really sat down and figured it out ourselves. We didn't know what we were doing. I was the first person in my family to go to college. And so her and I just kind of buckled down and figured it out together. My mother was the one that kind of helped me. And we were both in the dark.
But y'all got through it. So
we got through it. We figured it out.
You're a single parent who's a college freshman. How do you balance motherhood versus coursework?
You know. So people always ask me that question, and I honestly give God thanks and glory, because there is no such thing as balance. I had a very tough time trying to balance that, and that's why I say I've never regret going to Prairie View. My professors were very understanding of my situation. My colleagues, the people that were going to college with, they really embraced me and my son. There were times when I would have to take my son to school with me, and everybody would just pitch in. The professors would pitch in. I remember a professor saying, "Give me that baby," and holding my baby and teaching in the classroom. And so I never, there was no such thing as balance. My life for those 3 years was very, very stressful. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of long nights. There was a lot of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. There was a lot of, am I ever going to be able to graduate? Like, this can't be my life. You have to remember, I was a teenage mom. I'm still learning this thing, transitioning to a mom. I was away from my family for the first time. And I was working 2 jobs, and I was doing it all by myself. So I don't know how I got through it, but God, because that is the only thing that I can say that, or only reason I can say that I was able to successfully with honors from Prairie View A&M.
That's good to hear though, man. With God and perseverance, all things possible. So things get better. You're going to graduate from PV. And like you said, I'm assuming you were the first person in your family to graduate college.
Mm-hmm.
What does that moment feel like?
It was surreal. It was surreal, but it was not, I didn't feel accomplished yet. I had not finished the task at hand, which was, I'm a lawyer. So graduation to me was just like, okay, step 1 has been completed. What's next?
I was so burnt out by the time I got my bachelor's. I just don't understand how people go on to do what you did, master's, doctorate. But okay, so try to put it to words what your experience was like attending the HBCU.
Man, okay, so Attending a HBCU is an experience like no other experience, especially when you come from our hometown where it's not predominantly Black. First of all, it's a culture shock. You're there, everybody around you is Black, everybody is educated, everybody is trying to succeed in life. And so there's that culture shock. But then also feeling like you are a part of something bigger than yourself. It's just something that you can never get from another institution. And I'll just say that because I went to Queens Mary, where I was the only Black law student there, right? And so it's just a feeling of belonging. It's a feeling of this is my school. Like to this day, like everybody from Prairie View, it's like a family. It's really like a family. And I always go back to my professors and my colleagues really looking out for me. Like it was not like just going to some place where you get an education. This is going to a place where they're truly embracing the whole person that you are. And like I said, I made the best. I love my undergraduate school. I love Prairie View. I did not get the college experience that most people got, like the party school, the going out all the time. I maybe went to 4 or 5 parties my whole time at Prairie View because I simply didn't have the opportunity or time. But I love, love, love my school. I love Prairie View.
Do you still go to homecomings?
I do. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are not a graduate unless you come back home.
Okay, I see here you were working as a correctional officer. Was that your initial introduction to the legal system?
That was my initial introduction. So funny story. When I graduated Prairie View, I had to study for the LSAT, which is the test that you take in order to get into law school. And I needed to save money in order to do that. So I gave myself 1 year. I said, you literally have 1 year to figure this out because I never wanted to get complacent. I never wanted to be okay with the bare minimum. And to me, my thought process was, hey, getting a college degree, that's the bare minimum because of where I wanted to go. That was just step one. And so I did get the opportunity to work as a correctional officer. And I went to the same unit that my mom was incarcerated in until, like, she was incarcerated until I was 12. I went to that same unit and everybody knew me. Like I look just like my mother. Everybody was, oh, you signed your back, get out of like, so that was a really cool experience. And I just had to remind myself then too, nobody ever believed me when I started working. I was like, I'm only here for a year. I'm going to law school. And everybody would laugh like, oh, okay, you're going to law school. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Wow. Okay. So what's something you learned doing that job? Could be something you learned about yourself, just something you learned doing that job.
To never judge a book by its cover. To never judge people based on what you see. Really get to know people for who they are.
Some of the most intelligent people are incarcerated. That's something you learn.
Absolutely.
But, okay, let's move on. So you're going to attend, like you said, the Queen Mary University of London. Was that online or did you actually study in London?
Oh, I moved to London and went to London and stayed there for a year. So at one point I said I was going to do international law. We wanted to be corporate attorney. And so I went there to study international arbitration and international business law. And so, yes, I went to London for a year and went to Queen Mary's University.
Was that your first time in another country?
It was my first time.
Okay, so what was that experience like, the totality of it? How would you sum it up?
It was necessary.
Okay.
Necessary. Had I not taken that opportunity to go over study law, I don't think that I would have ever gotten to this point where I travel all the time, right? That was my first introduction to, okay, there is a whole world out here that you have not seen. Education wise, it was your typical, it was a very white, very conservative school. I was the only one of 2 Black people there studying for law. The numbers that are here are worse in the UK. And so I was really a unicorn there trying to study law, and the level of respect for Black barristers is what they call them. It's ridiculous.
Is it low?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I was going to say that. What is the general opinion of foreigners? What general opinion do foreigners have of Americans?
Oh, they think that we're dumb. They
Wow.
think that we are, you know, what is the word? Like you think you are everything. We are. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a brain
Conceited, we're
fart.
full of ourselves.
We're full of ourselves, but there's a word that we're full of ourselves. We think
Conceited.
we know
Okay.
everything. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So
And they don't think that Americans travel often. When I travel, people are so surprised that I'm American because it's like we don't travel. We stay in our bubble. And that's true because it's very expensive to travel. If you think about it, America's here and then the world is over here, right? And so when you travel, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars to go to another country. But when you're over there, it may be like $50 to go to another country, to get on a plane, to go round trip. Yeah, it's very cheap. $100, $200 to travel to another country. So they're more world traveled because it's not as expensive as it is for us.
well, I'm glad you had that experience for Americans so they can kind of, you gave them an opinion of us that challenges what they were first taught.
Absolutely.
Right. So okay, what did you do your dissertation on?
So I didn't have to necessarily do a dissertation. What I did was I actually went and worked for the head of criminal justice, Senator John Whitmire, as his policy analyst, and I actually drafted law. So I didn't have to do a dissertation because I actually wrote laws that actually are now laws.
Wow.
So I spent a year also as an intern for him and working as his policy analyst. That was my dissertation.
Okay, cool, cool. So let's move on a little bit. Next, you're going to graduate from Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I would hope everyone is at least familiar with who this guy is, who was pivotal in ending the whole racial inequality divide. I first personally heard of this guy because of the Brown versus Board of Education. You know, something that kind of still, well, I won't say it applied to us, but it applied to our parents in Cameron. We had the Yo High School
OJ
for all the
Thomas.
white people, OJ Thomas for all the black folks. And I'm kind of glad that OJ Thomas is still staying. It's like a reminder, like, man, this place was segregated not too long ago.
And
Like,
still
what's
very
your
much
thoughts on that? You
segregated.
grew up in a town that might have some I don't want to say racist because I don't really feel like I did. You experience any racism growing up in Cameron?
Well, I will say it was never in your face. It's never
Okay.
in your face. So now when I go back home and I understand that racism doesn't have to be in your face, it can be subtle, right? Yeah, it's racism there. It's just not in your face.
Okay. And even now, when you go into accomplish so much, do you feel like you still get certain looks or like,
Well, yes and no. Listen, I tell people all the time, young lawyers or people who are going into, very small conservative towns, you get your respect by doing your job. So when I do my job, I know what I know. Nobody can get over on me. Nobody can, undermine me. And once you establish yourself as that bitch or that person, you don't have to worry about it. I've been tried though before. I've been tried by the DA in Milam County, and I think he knows now that I'm not to be played with. So,
wow, wow. Okay, so how much inspiration do you take from someone like him, Thurgood Marshall?
Thurgood Marshall, I mean, he's a pioneer in law. He was one of the first. So it's just a simple reminder when you go to a school named after somebody so impactful, every time that you enter a room, you have to remember that you're there to leave impact. You're there to move forward the mission of Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And that is to simply make sure that you improve the law, you improve the environment, you improve everything around you to make it better. As a 2%er, a Black woman attorney, my job is always to go into a room and make sure that another girl or a person who looks like me has someone to look up to. So that's the impact. And then just to make sure that we make sure that opportunities are always available to all people of all colors.
I love it. I love it. And so I think we already covered that you did initially want to get into criminal defense, but I would love for you to tell your genuine story on how you got into family law.
Oh, okay. So family law. So I was studying for the bar exam. I think I've told anybody from Cameron this story. This is gonna be crazy. Have you
I
Do you know?
have, but I did my research. I don't think
No,
most
it's nothing to be
people can.
researched. I don't think it's even out there, but okay.
I had to watch an interview that you did
This is
prior.
the breaking news. This is the moment because I don't think I've ever told a lot. Like I've never told a lot of people this story. But anyways, so I graduated law school, and once you graduate, you immediately go into what we call bar study, and you're studying for the exam that'll actually give you your license. And it's a very hard test. In fact, Texas bar exam is a 3-day exam, and it's one of the hardest exams to pass in the United States. Us in New York. And so my son was very young at the time. I believe he was 5 or 6. And my son is the type of kid when he goes to sleep, like he sleep right now, 120. When he goes to sleep, he does like he's knocked out, like solid. Like it could be a hurricane outside. It could be a tornado outside. This kid will not wake up. And so one night, I was studying for the bar exam, and during the day I would go to Thurgood's law library to study, and I realized that I had forgot a book at the law school that I actually needed. And anybody who studied for a medical board exam or a law exam knows that like your day of studying is mapped out. Like it's very detailed because you only have like a month and a half to do what you need to do. There is no such thing as I'm not studying today or I'm not doing that today. Like you have to do everything that is listed on your study plan. And so it was about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and my son was asleep. And I said, you know what? Do I wake him up, put him in the car, or do I just go get the book? Because I live maybe 10 minutes away from the law school. I decided that I was going to leave him sleep, and then I was just going to go get my book and come back. I locked the door, went to the law school, got my book, came back, and there were police everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I stay in a very safe neighborhood. I wonder what's going on. Go up the stairs, and I open my door, and there are 3 police officers in my house. And I'm like, oh my, like you immediately kind of go into panic mode. Like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like, is my son okay? What is going on? The officers pulled me out of the house and said, we got a call. And this is how I know that officers will lie to you. We got a call to say that you've been gone for hours and you left your son alone for hours. And we have neighbors telling us that you do this all the time. This is the first time I've ever left my son by himself. And so I'm a law student, so I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, that's not true. I have this book in my hand. You can literally see this book in my hand. I just went to go get a book. But can you tell me if my son is okay? Yeah, he's okay, but you're not going to be okay. What is this book? I said, well, I just graduated law school. I'm studying for my bar exam. If you're looking in my apartment, you can see all my studies. Like you can see everything that I've been studying. And I remember vivid another moment. There was 2 Black officers and a white woman officer. The 2 Black officers, they really wanted to let me go. But the white woman officer looked me in my face and she said, well, that's unfortunate. You'll never be a lawyer now. I was charged with felony child endangerment. I was taken to jail, and I had to go through the whole process of proving that I was innocent. And anytime that someone is charged with a child crime, like a crime against the child, there is automatically a CPS case that is involved, which is in the family law court. I could only afford at the time a criminal defense attorney. I could not afford a criminal defense attorney and a family law attorney at the same time. I was also still working for Senator Whitmire. And so they assisted me with getting a criminal defense attorney. The case was eventually dismissed because it was a lot of bullshit. But during that time, I had to represent myself in the family law court with CPS to make sure that my son was not taken away from me. So I'm studying for the bar exam. I'm going through this criminal case, showing up to having to go to court every other month. And then I'm having to learn family law to represent myself with my child. All that to say, it really impacted me. I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the system and they don't have a voice and they don't have people to defend them. I remember going to court the first time in my criminal case and not having an attorney and making the same legal argument that my attorney, who cost me $10,000 to get, made. And I was not listened to, but the attorney that was representing me, everything that she said, I had said at the first hearing. And so it just kind of reminded me, like, one, never play with the system, like never go into a courtroom without an attorney. Doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are, doesn't matter how smart, it doesn't matter who you are, you need somebody to represent you. And then two, just being an advocate really sparks me. So sometimes I lose money for my business because I really want to advocate for people, because I know that if they're not represented by counsel, they're not going to have a good result in court. So that is the reason why now I am a family law attorney.
What an amazing story. To this day, do you hold any resentment for the person, whoever called the laws on you?
I don't know who the person is. I really don't. I wish I could, but I just don't know who that person is. My attorney tried to keep me focused on my bar exam. And so, you entitled to review the discovery, review the complaint, and all of that. I was not in the mind space to be concerned about who called the police on me. So I don't know who that person is, but if the person is ever listening, I became a lawyer. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. He's okay. He's good.
So at the end of the day, they actually did you a favor. They put you on
no,
your.
They didn't. They stressed. That was stress. And then it also gave me that perspective. I did start off doing criminal defense work. It gave me that perspective that, what, always put yourself in, one, don't judge a book by its cover. Two, always put yourself in the situation of the person that you're representing. It's a lot of emotion, and you are literally trusting a stranger with making sure that your life will be okay moving forward, right? So I always try to be very transparent and open and honest with my clients. I'm like, day one, you're gonna know what to expect, what's going to be going on, because I remember that I needed that. I needed that reassurance. I needed that honesty and candor, and that's what I try to give to my clients.
Okay. So I think we have 6 minutes left here. So have you ever worked for any other firm, and what made you elect to build your own practice?
I did work for a couple of firms. I worked for a few firms before I started, but not any family law firm. I started my firm out of necessity. I was done working for the senator. I just bar exam, and I was applying to different jobs, and nobody was trying to hire me. And I, bills were becoming due. Food, I was hungry, needed gas. My son needed school clothes and stuff. And I said, you know what? I will never give anybody the opportunity to tell me no again. I will start my own law firm. I took my first case. I remember receiving $3,000 at once. I was like, oh my God, I'm rich. I'm rich. That first year I made 6 figures, more than any firm that I wanted to work for was willing to pay me. And so
Congrats,
after that, I will never work for somebody else again. Never.
I love it. So, okay. What are some of the challenges? You know what? Before I ask that, you said you were working for a senator. Do you have any aspirations to get into politics, like Senator?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't have the personality for that. I don't.
So what, you got to be fake?
No, you don't have to be fake, but there is a game that comes with politics, and you have to be willing to play that game for the benefit of your constituents. Okay. I'm not willing to play games.
Okay. So what are some of the challenges you face as a boss who's heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of her business?
There's no such thing as a day off. Like, I just had vacation, but I worked every day of my vacation. There's a balance. Again, there's no such thing as balance. All of my friends are professionals, and we talk about this all the time. There is no such thing as balance. And so there are going to be moments where your business is just the #1 priority right now, and family kind of has to take a back seat. And that's just the reality. Also, my schedule is crazy busy. I used to resent people who was like, oh, let me check my calendar. I used to say, you cannot be that, like, you literally cannot be that fucking busy. Like, there is no person that busy on earth. But now I live and die by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it does not exist, because my day is literally booked from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to sleep. And that is like the most stressful. And it's also affected by health. This job is a very stressful job. And so now I'm dealing with, okay, you keep going this route, you really gonna have high blood pressure. And it's a real conversation, a real thing in our profession. This job can affect you health wise.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay. And I can vouch for that because I accidentally emailed you on your vacation. I remember you telling me in the DMs to reach out to your assistant, and I still emailed you directly on some. I thought you were going to give me the passive aggression as per my last email.
No, my assistant literally keeps my life in order, like, because I'm dealing with so much in the day to day. And it's just like, I don't say that to be like, oh, I got an assistant. Like, no, if you don't tell her, I'm going to forget. Like, if I literally have to tell her everything that's going on in my personal life so she can keep my calendar in sync.
Okay, so I got to try to speed through this last one. We got 2 minutes left. So
Okay.
accomplishing everything you accomplished, you established Project 4-Way, a nonprofit that provides mentorships, workshops, and scholarships. You personally came back and offered free expungements, cleaning people's records. This is something that individually would cost you $1,000 each person, maybe probably like, I don't know, $3,000 to get something expunged off your record. And you did it for free, free. So, you know what I'm saying? I just want to know, you were literally giving people the option to walk a better path in life. Where did that idea come from?
It was just me wanting to do something that I felt like my community needed. I feel like a lot of people have records that are eligible for expunction, and it stops them from getting jobs or getting opportunities that they otherwise would have. And so for me, it was just, in what way can I give back to my community? Because my community has given so much to me. It's made me the person that I am today. And so that was just the idea behind it. What can I do to help? What can I do to give back?
And we thank you for that. So let's move on right here. Unfortunately, the murder of George Floyd happens. Protests are going on all over the world, people getting arrested left and right, and that's where you came in. You were pivotal in organizing the effort that led to over 600 people having cases dropped against us.
Dude, you really did your research.
You know what I'm saying? Can you tell us about that real quick?
Yes. So the George Floyd situation, amongst a lot of Black men who have fell victim to police brutality and murder, was very it was really something on my heart to do. So what we did was we got together, we organized, we put together a list of attorneys who would represent protesters for free. And we wrote letters to our district attorney, our mayor at the time, just letting them know that people's rights were being violated and that we were living in a time where, we needed to do something and do something now. And so eventually what happened was, because of that organization, because of us organizing all of these attorneys and writing all these letters, all of those cases, if you were a protester and you got arrested for, petty offense, those offenses were dismissed, and we did expunctions for free.